places you grow up, the tumbling round is wrong.
This is
Your Other Family podcast.
And the wheel of love is hidden within us, and we wrestle with it, and we wrestle with it. And the wheel of love is hidden within us, and we wrestle with it, and we wrestle with it. And the wheel of love is hidden within us, and we wrestle with it, and we wrestle with it. And the wheel of love is hidden within us, and we wrestle with it, and we wrestle with it.
Welcome, fam, to Your Other Family podcast. We are a nonprofit ministry integrating faith, sexuality, and gender together. I'm the executive director of Your Other Family, director of Your Other Brothers, Tom. I'm so delighted that you are here. Here with me, as always, going back 2 whole episodes, it's my other sister, director of Your Other Sisters, Erin. What's up, Erin?
Hey, how are you?
It's good. How are you?
Oh no,
You messed up the
flow. How's it going?
It's going so well. Thank you for being here, Erin.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
this is so exciting, Erin. We are joined by one of our board members, actually the secretary
Ooh.
of the board. It's Jesse. What's up, Jesse?
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be on here with you too.
Jesse, it's your YOFcast debut. How does it feel?
It's a little surreal. It's, it feels like so much getting to this point. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's true.
So exciting. This is not your first rodeo, though. You've been on, it's your first YOFcast. I mean, we've only done 3 of these, so, there's not a lot of history. But
True.
you've been on 2 podcast productions. Do you want to briefly remind the people, if they're like, oh, yeah, I remember Jesse, remind the people what you spoke about on our previous combo casts.
So previously, I was on the Barbie podcast.
Yes.
And I was also on the, as part of the Enneagram podcast series, I was for representing Enneagram 1. So I was on that podcast as well. I think those are like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a blur during that time frame.
Your Enneagram podcast, I still think about this all the time because I think the title of it was something like, I've got about 2 hours of fun left in me or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
2 hours of social
As an
energy.
Enneagram 1. Yes. And you have no idea, I go to 1 in growth and I feel that so much. There's something in that feels true to me, that I've got a couple hours of fun in me, but then once the fun is depleted, I'm out. I need to go to bed. I
gotta go.
Close the door. I gotta go, girl.
Yeah.
I gotta get out of here.
I think I mentioned at one point, just for fun, I was like, I think I kind of want to time this, and it's almost 2 hours to like on the dot. It's like when it runs out.
I love that.
Even the fact that you said, I think I want to time this is like
such a
wonder.
thing.
that might be me at my best, or something might be wrong.
That's true. I never thought about that. That's so funny. Well, I'm so glad you're here and all your Enneagram oneness. I hope it's 2 hours of fun for you over the next couple of hours.
Anytime with you two is always fun.
I hope you saved up your reservoir. We're talking about gender minorities today. And so delighted that you're here to offer your perspective. And we got a ton of feedback, not just from our yobbers, but now we have yossers in the mix. And so we got all these men and women, members of our community, who contributed their thoughts to the questions we asked. And so we're going to get through as much of it today as we can. But before we get to all of that, Jesse, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do with your life? What makes Jesse Jesse?
Yeah. So I right now am a barista of 11 years. I did corporate with Starbucks for 6 years, and I've been in specialty coffee for 5. I am just venturing into the counseling world as well. So I'm beginning to start kind of shifting focus more in that direction. I'm about to start an internship with another ministry called Kaleidoscope in New York City, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, currently live in the city of Oaks, Raleigh, North Carolina, with my other brother, Ryan Berger. but I will be leaving this humble abode in September, which I will be quite sad about. Is actually one of the things I'm genuinely going to miss most about being here in Raleigh. And I will try not to cry about it right now because it's not time to cry about that yet. Aside from that, I am the secretary for Your Other Family. I love doing admin work. It is one of my favorite things to do. So if any of y'all need admin work done and I have the ability to do it, I will happily do it for you.
Don't listen to Jesse. He's got way too much stuff to do right now.
Okay, fair. Let's see. I've been connected with, I guess, Your Other Brothers originally. I was a lurker since 2017, so early days. It was a big part of my own personal journey in navigating faith and sexuality in particular, as I was kind of working through a lot of those pieces at the very beginning of college. And yeah, I've loved the vision that you, Tom, have had, and then Erin coming into the picture as well for what is now Your Other Family. And I've been really excited to come alongside and help support y'all in whatever way I can.
Oh, well, God bless you. We need the note takers, the people that just have an eye for details and admin, like you said. So thank you for serving and being a part of this. Like, I'm super, super grateful to have you as one of our founding board members. Regardless of how long you stay, Jesse, isn't that kind of cool that you can always say you were a founding board member? Isn't that such a fun little
It is
detail?
kind of a little niche thing. And
yeah,
I don't know, maybe
niche.
it's my move to 4, but I love being unique like that.
Oh, look at us.
You should join the club.
1s to 4s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to have you from the city of Oaks. I keep expecting to see Ryan Berger coming out of your window or somewhere behind you in your background, but we'll see. We'll see if Ryan makes an appearance or not.
That would be terrifying if he did.
Real quick, what do you feel about going to New York City? That's like you're not going from Raleigh to Charlotte or like Raleigh to, I don't know, some other city, like, or Raleigh to Atlanta, even like Raleigh to New York City. That is a jump. What are you feeling about that? Just to the biggest city in America.
Yeah, it's a little terrifying in some regard. I'm not a city person at heart. I really love smaller cities, towns, more rural areas. It's closer to some of the places I grew up in, and so going to like the big city is a little overwhelming. At the same time, I've had a desire to do missions work since I was 8, and a big part of that is you go to where the people are, and there's a lot of people in New York. So I'm really excited also to be doing work and ministry alongside the people with Kaleidoscope and engaging very directly with the LGBTQ community in a missional way, something that I feel like I've been like training and preparing for the last like 10 years, really. And it's just really exciting to be able to do that and know that like even in my anxiety and the fears that I have about going to such a big city and even going to a part of the country that I've never lived in before, there's already been so much provision that the Lord has had in that process. And I trust and believe that He will be there with me every step of the way, like walking with me and sustaining me, providing for me as I seek to follow Him in this next step.
So awesome. Thanks for sharing a little bit about Kaleidoscope too. It's so interesting that there's like all these ministries popping up that are across the spectrum of like virtual only and like a hybrid of virtual and in person. And then you got something like Kaleidoscope, which is like so on the ground, right in the middle of New York City and in person. So I love that there's a nice cross section of ministries in the Side B world that are doing things on the internet and then IRL, as the kids say. So it's cool.
Retweet.
R.I.P. Twitter.
Oh,
Truly.
Yeah, we won't get into the Twitterverse here, but yeah, let me change gears real quick. I wanted to talk about the Alan Chambers arrest. I mentioned it briefly on a YOF update pod that recently came out. I talked about it for 3 or 4 minutes because it had happened like that day, I think, that I recorded. And it was very, very like present, very direct, very like front of mind and front of heart for me, because I never met Alan Chambers face to face, but we did interact several times online through the years. And for those that don't know, he was the last president of Exodus International before he and the board shut it down in 2013. And I was at that conference in Southern California at the 2013 Exodus conference. I also went to the 2009 conference, and I was fortunate with my experience in Exodus because I didn't do any of their therapies or programs or anything. Like I just went to 2 conferences and made a bunch of friends. And so my experience with Exodus was largely positive, but I also recognize that was not everyone's experience. And certainly that's an understatement for a lot of people who had a really traumatic experience in Exodus with their therapies or programs or what have you, with the expectation that maybe their sexual orientation could change or would change, and it didn't. And so I mentioned on the pod, on the update, that I always admired Alan Chambers, like the last couple of years, particularly because there was a very noticeable change in the tone, not only of him, but of Exodus in general, of just being open and honest. Like, yeah, it's like 99.9%, 999% of our people did not experience a change in orientation. And there was a lot of apology and a humility and a courage. Alan was never afraid to like go into an interview setting. Like there's interviews of him with Anderson Cooper and all kinds of interview, like big TV personalities online. And he did a Lisa Ling special where he and his wife, Leslie, went into a church basement and faced a bunch of ex-gay survivors. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I would be terrified to do that. And they let him have it. You know, they did not shy away. And it was a very sobering interview. I'm not sure if the whole thing is still available online or not, but I remember watching it and just being like, oh my gosh, this is intense. And I feel like he started another ministry after that, but then kind of stepped out of the ministry spotlight, was running a business down in Orlando where he lived. And it's a big, long setup to say that, yeah, I was shocked when the news came in that he was arrested for the solicitation of a minor, which turned out to be an undercover cop. And as of now, there's no other victims. I don't know if I'm praying that there's not actual victims, if more details come out in the weeks and months ahead. So this podcast may be out of date by the time but whenever someone listens to it, a week from now or a year from now or what have you, I don't know what the future looks like for Alan Chambers, but yeah, I don't know. I've just been living in this place of sadness and shock. And then also like, I don't know how y'all feel about when ministry leaders or former ministry leaders fail. Like on the one hand, like you can't be shocked that, oh, a human sinned. That's not shocking in and of itself. Like solicitation of a minor, that's not a small thing. That is a significant detail. And there's all kinds of news articles. I won't repeat some of the things I saw in the affidavit that came out. Like it's not great. It's really horrific actually. And so I feel sad. There's like a complex array of feelings, of feeling sad for his wife and feeling sad for his 2 kids and just wondering what their lives look like after this. And then also just like, I don't know if y'all feel this, but I feel this too. I feel this like this target on me in a sense where it's like ministry leaders have to be perfect or pastors have to be perfect. And again, there's a big difference between watching pornography one night and soliciting a minor. Like, yes, there is a significant difference there, but I do feel the severity of it. It's like, this is no small matter, like to lead a ministry or to lead a group of people and to live in integrity with other people. I mean, it's been very convicting for me to just make sure that I'm taking care of myself and certainly with Erin and any other employees we have, like it's such a priority that we all are staying in integrity with one another and with the Lord, because, yeah, I don't know. It's just, that's like a worst nightmare scenario, right? Is like something like one of our ministries or certainly any of the other Side B ministries that are out there, like for a leader to fall in such a significant, horrific way. So I just invite people out there to pray for your leaders, pray for your pastors, pray for your Side B leaders, pray for me and Erin and Jesse and our board members. And, you know, for those that are in our community, like it hit home pretty significantly recently. And so I appreciate everyone that's reached out. I heard from a few of our community members and made me smile to hear from some people. So thanks for just reaching out. I took a mental health me day last week where I was like, I'm just going to not do much today and feel my feelings and take a walk and get some sunshine. And yeah, just pray for this whole situation that it's stirring up a lot for me.
Kind of like what you were saying, Tom, about feeling like you have a target, especially being a new org, and especially kind of like being a more nuanced perspective on sexuality, but still kind of leaning on, I guess, not kind of leaning on and believing in the traditional sexual ethic. I think a lot of people from the outside focus in on the fact that he was a former ex-gay minister. And since that, since that's true, people are like, see, gotcha. This guy can't commit to his morals because he's restricting himself and he hates himself. And it's turned into some sort of perversion and targeted towards children. Like we see, unfortunately, the scandals in the Catholic Church that have been exposed for like 80 years at this point, post Vatican II. I don't know. It's really frustrating. But it's also legitimate. Like, yeah, we don't know how many times this has happened. And we often see either no justice or like justice at a very delayed rate for things like this. And then, yeah, on the opposite end, and there's so many people in our community that care about him or knew him closer or like actually knew him. And like you said, Tom, he's got a family that probably had no idea I can't imagine they had any idea he was doing this and however long, and to be a kid and have to go to school and people all know that your dad was arrested, it's just,
I hate that.
Hard.
Yeah. I hate that for them. And yeah, and that was, you touched on another fear I had, and it was just like, yeah, I don't want people to think, secular people or affirming people to think like, see, you can't do it. You can't be celibate, or you can't be in a mixed orientation marriage, or you can't live out this side B life because this is what happens. You're going to solicit a minor. And like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I hope that doesn't become a narrative that picks up steam. It's like, I'd like to believe that, yeah, if we can live in integrity with one another, confession, accountability, and community, healthy community, that, that we can live this life. Like, I still believe that. I don't not believe that, but it is, I can already hear that cry from certain people out there, which is hard. So I just want to say, yeah, anyone out there, if you need people to talk to, if you need a place to vent, we had the Sam Albury situation, which we won't dive back into on this episode. We talk about it on our most recent YOBcast, but stuff like this will only continue to happen. It's like, we're fallen humans, like ministry leaders will fail. And I don't know. It's just, I feel good about, we've had some really productive, healthy, I think, conversations in our Discord community, and just being able to be open and honest about what we're feeling, the negative emotions and the uncomfortable emotions of what we're feeling in these two particular situations. And no doubt any others to come. So reach out to us anytime if you need someone to vent to, someone to talk to. We're here for you. Shifting gears, just a continuing shout out to rate and review this podcast network. We're on Spotify. We love the ratings. The Spotify ratings thing is so easy. Like Apple makes it a little more difficult. You have to like put a username and a subject line, and it's like, Apple, I understand. Apple takes a little more effort to leave us a review, but we would love it if you did leave us a rating review on Apple. Spotify, it's so easy. You just click the number of stars you want, and you can move on. You move on with your merry way. And so give us up to 5 stars. If you think we're worth 5 stars, give us 5 stars. But click on that. That'll help us out. The more people rate and review, it stirs the algorithm. It recommends our podcast based on what other people are listening to. It's kind of creepy, but also we're just going to lean into it and we're just going to go with it. And so yeah, love it if you would do that. Remember, with ratings and now the reviews, you can review the YOFcast. It's not just a YOB show anymore. It's the YOScast and the YOFcast as well. So you can reference any or all of these podcast productions on the Your Other Family Podcast Network, and it helps other people find what we're doing. So thanks to everyone who's already done that. And just a reminder, all of our episodes are chaptered. So if you want to skip ahead to all the juicy details later in the episode and miss all these announcements, but you're going to miss the sponsor soon. So you can't skip ahead, but we are chaptered. So click around, check out our chaptered. And I also noticed, I don't know if you guys have noticed yet, a lot of podcasts now are getting automatically transcribed. Have you noticed this on your podcasts?
I saw that.
I was like, I checked our podcast. I was like, I didn't do anything. I scrolled across. I use Overcast as my podcast app. And all of a sudden I'm like reading everything I'm saying that I didn't input a text file. It just knows what I'm saying now. So you can even read our podcasts now if you just like to read or read along.
I love to read while I listen.
Do you? Okay.
Yes,
I'm sure.
I love those subtitles.
I was like, that doesn't appeal to me, but I'm sure there are people out there that are like, oh man, I can read a podcast now. Yeah, you can read your podcasts. So check out that feature on whatever podcast app you're using. I think a lot of podcast apps are doing that now. Check our show notes as well. We've got links to everything we're going to talk about today, including our giving page. We have a public giving page, which we appreciate all of our support wherever it comes from. We also have a private giving link, which we don't post publicly, but it's accessible via our membership pages. So if you're interested in joining either your other brothers or your other sisters, just check out our membership pages. The links are in the description. And we would love, Erin and I would love to talk to you and learn about you and why you want to join our community. Jesse, I'm curious, why do you give, or why should the rando out there listening, why should they potentially consider at least giving to your other family?
Yeah, I think particularly going into nonprofit work myself, funding and fundraising is such a big, important part of the work that we do. And as someone who gives to your other family and a lot of other missionary friends, people who do other types of nonprofit work, and now is moving into a space where I am also receiving from that type of funding, that format. One of the things I think is really important is, one, being a good steward of your finances. And I think being a good steward of finances also means being able to give generously in the ways that the Lord has blessed you financially. I think also that comes with some discernment, and not everyone's going to have the same beliefs or thoughts or perspectives. But if you encounter things like your other family, that you really believe in the mission and the vision of what your other family or other types of nonprofit orgs or individuals doing nonprofit work believe what they're doing, then help give and support, even if it's just a small amount. Like that is such a huge thing. It really is a blessing. I know I get really excited whenever I see people who have donated to what I'm going to be doing with Kaleidoscope. And I have no doubt that Tom and Erin feel the same when people are donating and funding their efforts as well.
Yeah. It makes me it makes me smile so wide to know that there are literally people in our community who have been giving $5 a month for 9 years. I don't know, calculate, you guys do the math in your head, but $5 a month for 9 years, that adds up. That's really cool. So for $5 a month, $10 a month, or, whatever you're able, we really do appreciate it as we continue to find our legs or find our wings maybe, and grow as a little nest of sparrows as we continue to grow. So thanks, Jesse, for your giving and your support, and just for everyone else that's out there giving and in membership or otherwise. We appreciate y'all. Before we get to our sponsor, I need to announce that we're about to be at Revoice. I think when this episode comes out, Revoice is just around the corner. All three of us will be there. So come say hello, come find us. We'll be wearing these cute little sparrow pins for those that are comfortable sporting their sparrow pride. We got these little sparrow pins. So I'll be wearing a Your Other Family sparrow pin on my lanyard at Revoice. And we're also sponsoring, this is exciting, it's the first time we've ever sponsored Revoice. So we'll have a table. It'll be the pretty table. We're going to have all the sparrow memorabilia and fun things galore. So come find us at the pretty table and look for the sparrow pins. You'll find your way to be there. It's also really exciting. I mean, so many announcements, so many things going on. Jesse and Erin, you're also doing extra stuff with Revoice. Do you want to briefly just tease what are you doing? Let's go to Erin first, and then we'll go to Jesse. Erin, what are you doing at Revoice this year?
Yes, yes. A couple things. So, Janelle Look, who is on staff with Revoice, she and I are coordinating a pre-conference for women. It's free. It's Wednesday, the 17th, 1 until 4, I believe. It will be a time where we hang out together, hear different testimonies, whether it's about sexuality or not, just some sort of testimony in the life of women in our community, pending on snacks, pending on activities that aren't cringe and like women's conferencey. So that's remains to be seen. We're gonna try to like, we're not gonna be writing letters to our husband or like decorating wreaths or stuff like that. And
I'm so glad you offered some suggestions, because I was like, I'm not going to be the one to say, oh, are you going to do this or do that? So thank you for giving the listeners some things that you will not be doing.
Of course, some context here. Yeah, a lot of the gay girls have baggage from these types of events, so just trying to ease your nerves. We're going to be doing something that most of us will enjoy, hopefully. Also, at 3:00 on Thursday, I am going to be part of a panel talking about celebration as a spiritual discipline. Right. So a lot of our peers who are married are celebrating marriage, baby showers, and all those sorts of things that have to do with being paired off, And as celibate people, we have the opportunity to find different ways to celebrate ourselves and celebrate our the important people in our life. So I will be one of 4, I think, panelists, and should be a good time. We'll be in the sanctuary, so big mega church vibes. We'll be in the big room, just walking it at 3, and you'll see me on the stage with some other cool people. So, yeah.
Ooh, so fancy. Thanks for sharing. Man, that's a lot of stuff. And Jesse, what are you doing? What are you doing at Revoice this year?
Yes. So this year, I am getting the opportunity to lead a breakout on the mystery of God beyond gender from 1:30 to 2:30 on Thursday. And I'm really excited about that. I'm looking forward to being able to highlight something that's a different perspective than I think a lot of people would normally get at Revoice. Also different like conversation topic. And I'm really excited to also be able to have that be oriented towards a lot of the gender minorities who will be present there, and essentially be able to direct it towards them. But also I wanted to have it open to anyone to come really and listen and hear the gifts that we have to offer the church. So I'm really excited about that. I actually was just finishing up typing everything out today. I was getting kind of emotional at the end, just with like how beautiful I think it is and how excited I am to share this with the community. And then I'm also helping lead worship. I've played bass for 20 years, and also sing. And it's one of my favorite ways to contribute to worship and contribute to the body of the church. And it's something I've not really been able to do consistently in a long time. And I'm actually really excited to be able to do that with Revoice this year and do it in a space that has been so healing for me, and be able to share that with other people and hope provide the same back.
That's awesome. I didn't know you were doing worship too. That is so great. I've already told you and affirmed you, Jesse, that I love it when you've come to the YOB retreat a couple times and you've sung "We Will Feast in the House of Zion." It's like one of my favorite things. I was like, only Jesse can sing this song.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, it is definitely one of my favorites. I love that song.
I don't even think of Sandra McCracken. I think of Jessie White. That's who I think of
Wow,
when I think of that song.
I praise.
Truly though.
Wow.
When I hear Sandra sing it, I'm like, I mean, it's good, but I like Jessie.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, it's so great. Yeah. So Revoice 2026, Columbus, Ohio. Come say hey, come see the table. We're also doing a little hangout night on Friday night, and it's not like YOF exclusive. Like anyone can join us. We're going to hang out. I'm sure you'll find us. Look, follow the sparrow pins, follow the sparrows, and just come hang out with us. If you're curious to learn more, just want to meet some of our members, or meet me and Erin or Jesse or any of our board members, like it'll be fun to hang out for a little bit together on Friday night. We've done this actually a couple of years at Revoice now, of having our community members together. So it's really cool to be able to come together in person, both our men and now our women in YOS as well. So come say hello, and looking forward to being together with everyone really soon. All right. Well, now it's time for our sponsor, and it's my understanding that the sponsor reached out to our board. They didn't even come to me this time. They went to our board member Jesse. So Jesse, who is sponsoring this episode on gender minorities today?
Yeah. Our sponsor is someone who I cherish quite a bit. They're a crucial part of many people's diets. They provide a lot of things like protein, and also are representative even of our community. And our sponsor, I'm excited to share, our eggs.
Oh my gosh.
Eggs have reached out, and they were really excited when they heard we were talking about gender minorities. And so Eggs said, hey, can we come and sponsor? We believe a lot in what you're going to be sharing. And so, I'm really excited that Eggs were willing to come and sponsor our episode for this one.
Oh, thank you, Eggs. Eggs are so great.
We
love eggs. We heart eggs. I like eggs.
I have them at least 8 times a week, probably.
Oh.
Whoa, so many.
I eat a lot of eggs at work. I work at a coffee shop.
In this economy?
I get them for free. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Eggs did apologize for the rising prices, but they have no control over that, unfortunately.
Yeah. We won't get into the politics of inflation right now, but that's for another podcast. Thank you, Eggs. Well, let's dive right into it, y'all. Let's talk about gender minorities. This is a topic that I feel like it's one of those back burner ones where I'm like, oh yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll get there. And we just haven't gotten there for so many years now. And so I'm delighted. I'm glad we're here now. This feels like the right time. This feels like the right setting. It feels like we have the right people involved, where it's not just a bunch of bros on a YOBcast talking about it. I feel like we got a nice mix of humans on this podcast. And like I said earlier, got amazing feedback from our YOB and YOS members. And so thanks y'all for giving your thoughts on this. But I guess before we go further, we need to define what we're even talking about. What is a gender minority? If someone has never heard that phrase before, what is it? Jesse, can you explain? You're the de facto person here to share all of the info. So tell us what a gender minority is before we progress.
Yeah, so typically gender minority is a term associated with individuals who don't fit into the typical male-female gender binary. And often that is connected with some sense of misalignment, often, but not always categorized as gender dysphoria. And it can often be associated with people choosing to do various stages of transitioning, either a full transition, including like medical transitioning steps. They may only do partial transitioning. They may just do social transitioning. They may not transition at all. It may just be something that they kind of keep more to themselves, and don't really do a lot of like externalization of it to the public eye. That's often very location dependent. But yeah, that's typically the most common understanding of gender minority. And I would also clarify within that, there's also a distinction between gender dysphoria and gender incongruence. And so as we're continuing the conversation, gender dysphoria is a medical term that is felt like mental and sometimes like somatic sensation of pain associated with this tension that is felt of some type of disconnect between the felt gender presentation versus maybe the biological gender presentation. Gender congruence, I think most people have experienced some form of gender incongruence, which is often more of a kind of butting up against cultural like stereotypes or expectations that you may not fit into. And so I think everyone has had some type of discomfort or incongruence that's occurred at times in their lives where they have said, this doesn't fit. I don't match this cultural expectation or this stereotype as a man or a woman. But that's not the same as dysphoria, where it's a much more intense felt sense that is like continuous, not just from one-off instances.
Yeah. That's a great distinction, because I would venture to guess that the vast, not just a majority, but the vast majority of our YOB community, and perhaps the YOS community as well, has experienced gender incongruence of being like, I do not fit into the masculine box that I have seen portrayed in my family or in my church or in my schools or sports teams that I wasn't a part of or what have you. Yeah, I'm sure that that's a pretty common story, but the distinction there between dysphoria and incongruence, I appreciate that. And I want to get your story, Jesse, and particularly how you have fit into YOB, because you mentioned at the top that you were lurking for a while. And I imagine that maybe this is part of that backstory of like, why are you lurking? Why is it taking you so long to jump into the pool with all of us and be a part of the fun? But because what I wanted to say also, as we're having this conversation, like we do a vulnerable exercise at our YOB retreats. And for years now, like people have been very open. It's not just one or two. It's like, I mean, I don't want to put a number on it, but it's more than one or two people in our community that would openly confess and say that, yes, I experienced gender dysphoria, more than just a gender incongruence with other men or masculinity. Like there's something happening more internally, more extreme than that sense of incongruence. So I love that, this has been for several retreats now, like this has been something that we can at least start to talk about. And we're going to go much deeper today than we ever have. But I just wanted to hear your story real quick or take your time, not real quick, take your time, tell your story. And then particularly how you have fit into YOB. There's the word brothers is in the name. Like, what is that conjured up in you as you assess your own sense of gender?
My faith story and the intersection of that with gender and sexuality is quite extensive. I've been following Jesus for 22 years, since I was 6 years old, and I'm a pastor's kid. My parents met at seminary. Me and my sister I've finished with said seminary. My sister's still there, so family affair. And I remember when I was first starting to follow Jesus, I was very, very rigid, rule follower, typical Enneagram 1, very also typical pastor's kid in that, super pious, really quick to hold other people to my standards, without fully, especially at that age, not fully even understanding what I was doing. And my dad joined the military when I was 10. And when I was 12, he was deployed for a year to Afghanistan. And during that year, it was hard for my whole family. But for me, that year, I was going through puberty, which is not a fun time for anybody. It's worse when you don't have one of your parents there and they're in an active war zone. I met the person who would be my abuser for the next 3 years. I started questioning my sexuality, and it was a pretty immediate realization of I have these attractions and they're very real. And then my next thought after that was, but I'm a Christian. Christians don't deal with that. So I kind of just push that away to the back of my mind where it should never be seen by anyone ever again. Or so I thought. And another thing that I was experiencing prior to that point is was definitely very, very effeminate, flamboyant little boy. So, I mean, the closet was glass. But I also have a distinct memory of wanting to dress up in my sister's princess clothes, which is not an uncommon thing for young kids to do, of exploring stuff and trying things on one side of the gender spectrum. But I remember doing that one time, and my dad, he didn't make a big deal. He was just kind of like, we don't really do this, and had a little conversation, but I was pretty young. I kind of didn't think much about it. But I remember when I was 12, I had still been kind of like having questions about like, am I supposed to be a girl at various points? And the sexuality thing made that a much stronger thought of like, was I supposed to be created as a girl if I'm having these desires? And not much into that year of my dad's deployment, I began experiencing this medical condition that a doctor I talked to about a few years ago thinks it may have been galactorrhea. And it's where your body begins producing milk outside of when you should be doing that. And I'm biologically male, so that's not a super common thing. It's not like super rare for that to happen. It does happen in biological males, but it's not super common either. And I had no clue what was happening. It was very painful. Gave me a lot of confusion about my body. And I also, at the time, lived by the beach. And so one of the things it actually took from me was my ability to really enjoy like going to the beach and swimming, because I love swimming in the ocean. And for that whole year, it was like an immediate switch where I did not want to take my shirt off anywhere. I didn't want people to see my body. I didn't even want to see my own body. I hated looking at the things that made me masculine, biologically male. And it was really, really painful, really disorienting. I didn't really know what to do with that either. And the only category I had to really think about that was being gay. And so for my teen years, going into college, when I first started talking about it, once I got to college, I pretty heavily connected the two, and just chalked up a lot of my gender dysphoria to the experiences I had also being gay. And so with YOB, I spent a lot of time. It was one of my first introductions to these conversations was Your Other Brothers. And spent a lot of time working through that, had some really good community support, a lot of people who were really gracious, unexpectedly so, especially in the spaces that I've been in, to walk alongside me, have open conversations. And I got to a place where I was pretty comfortable with where I landed and my perspective with sexuality. It was also something that never felt like a difficult conversation. For myself, I was like, yeah, this is what the Bible says, this is what I believe, based on the conclusions that I kind of landed at, and it felt like kind of one and done. And then in 2021, my mother got diagnosed with breast cancer, and that immediately brought the memory for me of the experience with galactorrhea that I had. And so that was when I first talked to my doctor about it, and she explained to me what it probably was. So that helped explain that piece of it. But what I realized in that moment is there were so many things that I had been experiencing that I had always associated with just being gay that were actually gender dysphoria. And it completely was like this whole unraveling for me of like, I'm having to separate these two experiences. And as an Enneagram 1, and as a pastor's kid, one of my biggest fears is that I would not be good enough for God or perfect enough for God. I remember when I was 12 in particular, that was a predominant fear for me. And it's what ruled my life for such a long time. And this realization of the gender dysphoria completely threw me back into that mindset in a way that I had never experienced before, because I'd never faced the dysphoria directly. So I'd never faced that fear directly. And it was terrifying. I could not really engage with God or church or anything like that in any meaningful way. I had some really painful experiences during that time frame, especially when I tried to share with people at church and they didn't know what to do. And so they didn't do anything. I actually had someone tell me that kind of on the back end of that process, where they saw that I was like suffering and having a really hard time and they didn't know what to do. And so they did nothing. And they apologized for that. I was actually appreciative of that particular conversation, but I know others who I'm sure saw the same and said nothing, did nothing, still have said nothing. And I was dealing with just a lot of other really painful experiences of calling all at the same time. And I had this moment in 2023 where I had this vision as I was talking with my therapist about some of what I was experiencing, where I saw myself as a 12-year-old curled up in a corner like a wounded animal. And I knew I needed help and I knew I needed healing, but I couldn't actually receive that because any attempts that people made to try and reach out, I would just lash back out because I was so afraid and so hurt and so terrified. And then in the beginning of 2024, I was listening to a podcast centering on joy. And during that podcast, I had that vision come to mind again, but this time it was zoomed out. And I saw on the other corner of the room this figure that I got the sense was God, and was also getting the sense that he was just waiting for me to come to him and wasn't trying to force anything. He wasn't trying to coax me over. He wasn't going to come to me, but he wanted to give me healing and essentially was waiting for me to come to him and be in his arms and receive healing. That podcast on joy also really convicted me a lot of the fact that I had been living in my state of suffering and not living in the hope and the joy of my salvation that I have in Christ. And reminded me, like this is something that is painful, and there's been a lot of painful experiences with that, but that's not where I live anymore. If I believe this faith that I have and believe in this Jesus who I follow, he's the one that brings me new life and resurrection and joy, and nothing that I experience in this lifetime can take that away from me. So why would I stay in that space? It did still take me, I would say, a good 2 years. There's still things I'm working through now, honestly. But it took me a good 2 years to actually, I would say, walk from that one corner of the room to the other side and be reconnected with God again in a meaningful way. And that's been a really hard process, but it's also been a really beautiful process. And I'm thankful for the ways that God has sustained me and strengthened me in that space, and also been with me in that space. Like he never left my side. I imagine that he had, but when I actually took the time to like step back from myself and really look around, I realized he had been there the whole time with me.
That's so awesome, Jesse. Thank you for sharing. all that. I knew a little bit of that, but there's so much of that you just shared I didn't know. And so thank you for being vulnerable and sharing a lot of your story. Like, so how do you view yourself today, like in the masculine, feminine, binary system that we have? Like, where do you see yourself? And again, going back to Yob, like how do you feel integrated or not within your other brothers? Like, do you feel like a brother amongst brothers, or is that confusing language, or is it like 80% correct, or like, yeah, how would you assess just like where you fit into our community, but then certainly just in general, how do you view yourself?
Yeah, I think as I've kind of worked through and processed a lot of those things for myself, where I've landed in various forms of presentation is more kind of on the non-binary sphere. My personal experience with dysphoria is I've never wanted to transition fully. I've never had the desire to be a woman. I remember also when I was pretty young, thinking, why do I have a penis? Like it feels pointless. It made more sense in my mind that God would just make us like the angels and be able to like interact with each other in meaningful ways that have nothing to do with like sex, basically. I know there's a purpose for sex. I've had to work through that. A lot of my own like feelings towards like sex and the biological pieces of like how we're created as humans in my adulthood. So I recognize those elements, but I've always seen myself, ironically enough, as like a Barbie or a Ken doll, where like there's like kind of vague generic features, but nothing like super specific. That's how I would prefer my body to be, honestly. I also have no real desire to take any extensive like particular steps to transition because it's just not. I have some of my own personal feelings about that of like why I wouldn't want to for like my own moral and theological reasons, but also my practical experience is just not as severe compared to other people I know. With Yob specifically, being in exclusively gay male spaces, exclusively male spaces in general, but especially gay male spaces have always been really hard for me. There's a variety of reasons for that. One of them being my dysphoria. I just prefer being in mixed spaces because I think it's important to be able to learn from a variety of voices, and not just across gender bounds, but I think also age and cultural differences. And so that's one thing I've always really liked about your other brothers is there is quite a variety of like age ranges and experiences within that I've been able to grow and learn from personally. It has also been challenging, especially the last few years as I've been working through a lot of my experiences with dysphoria, where there was a period of time where I wasn't sure how much longer I would be able to stay with Yob practically. But then Erin came along and pitched Your Other Sisters. And I thought, wow, this is actually like going a direction where I could see myself like staying and continuing to support, because I like that vision again of where Your Other Family is currently, where it's heading, being able to integrate a multitude of voices across the gender spectrum. But in Yob, I don't know if I would say I see myself as like a brother, more like a sibling. Probably
A sibling,
how I would say
yeah.
that.
That was kind of my thought, is that you don't strike me as bro. You strike me as sibling, Jesse. But shout out to Erin, major shout out to Erin for coming along at just the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently so. Yeah.
Thank you, Erin. For so many reasons. Yeah. I love that you know, the intergenerational component that you spoke to, that's something that I've always just loved about YOB, that we've got guys in their 20s and we've got guys in their 70s. And that's not exaggeration. That's true, that we got guys everywhere in between, and even a cross section of ages in the women's community as we get this going as well. That's really encouraging. And so something that I just want to like say here at the beginning, are we at the beginning? I don't know where we're at in this conversation. We're like beginning, middle. Is like this conversation just feels so appropriate, like for a community that's always just championed, you're welcome here. Come pull up a chair, come sit in the nest with us. Like you're not too old. I've gotten guys email me, even today, people will email me and be like, am I too old to join? I'm like 72 or I'm 73 or 68 or whatever. I'm like, no, you are right at home. Please come and join us because you're not too old. And like there's a place not only for the men and the women, but then for anyone who doesn't fit neatly into that binary. Like I'm determined that we're gonna find we are finding and have places for you that, like, you know, even just on our Discord server, the way it's set up is that we've got men only spaces, we've got women only spaces, and then we've got co-ed spaces where everyone's welcome to contribute and post and be a part of the community too. And so there's value in distinctness, but then there's also value in togetherness with everybody involved as well. And so it feels healthier, more holistic, because I love what you said. It's like learning from one another, people that are different from us, is only going to be to our benefit in the long run, I think, individually, but then collectively as an organization too. So I love the perspective that you bring, and hopefully others as well in our community as we tell these stories. Yeah, so I sent 2 prompts to our community members, and thanks again to everyone that contributed, but was just wanting to gauge what the community's feeling. What do you think? What do you feel about gender minorities? Those who don't fit neatly into these male or female gender boxes neatly. Jesse's already mentioned a couple terms, but there might be people out there that would identify with terms like non-binary, genderqueer, genderfluid, agender, or transgender. I just asked people, tell us your honest questions. And I wanted to be clear, there are no dumb questions. I always tell people, because people, I don't know if they do this with you guys, but they do this with me all the time. They're like, Tom, this is probably a really dumb question. Tom, sorry if this is a dumb question. And I always try to like bring peace to the situation right off the bat. I'm like, there is no dumb question. The fact that you want to learn and you're not just like ignoring it or pretending it'll go away. Like you want to learn, like only way to learn is to ask the questions, whether they're dumb or simple or ignorant or what have you. Like the goal being of learning and empathy, like that is amazing. So I love it when people ask those kinds of questions. So first one, I love this one because I've actually had this exact thought question, didn't know the answer. I'm about to learn along with millions of people listening right now. Millions. The person asked this: I never know what to do with mixed preferred pronouns like they/she. Or they/he. I can operate with either preferred one, but should I shift which one I'm using mid-conversation, mid-sentence? Is the first one that's listed more preferred than the second one? So if someone says they/she, does that mean they prefer they, but you can also go by she? And then he said, help an anxious but trying to be pronoun hospitable bro out. So we're going to help you out, bro, whoever you are. These are all anonymous. I have no idea who said all these things. So yeah, Jesse, I noted, why don't you tell us what your preferred pronouns are? And then, yeah, I've always wondered about that when people say they, he, or they, she as 2 examples. Like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my preferred pronouns are they, he. So easy example right there. But typically in that situation, it is some version of like maybe ambivalence. At least in my experience, that's what I've seen is there may be a slight preference, like in my case, slight preference towards they, but I feel broadly indifferent. I recognize I look more masculine than feminine. And I'm not trying to lean more one way or the other. Like, again, I would prefer to just not have a gender, but that's not how God works, at least in this particular state of being that we live in this world. And I also know, like, especially living in the South in particular, like everyone's going to call me sir or he, or use masculine terms. And that's just not a fight that is worth it to me. Like, I don't care enough about it to get up in arms, because it's not a point of discomfort for me. There are some people who do get really disconcerted when a pronoun gets used that's not their preferred pronoun. But I've also seen cisgender people have the same thing happen, where they get misgendered by accident, and they will get so fussy about like being called a ma'am when they're actually a sir, or vice versa. So like, people are going to get upset about what they want to get upset about. For me, and for I think a lot of people that fall kind of more in that middle territory of like they, he, they, she, or any all pronouns, like I think most of the time it's just you don't really care that much. I think even for people, I would also say, who have transitioned and are going by, if they're biologically male, have transitioned to female and are using female pronouns, most of the time they're going to be pretty understanding if you accidentally misgender them. There's rarely a situation, with a lot of people that I know at least, where they're gonna like put up a fight about that, especially if they can see where you're trying, or you just didn't know. Like if you don't know, are you gonna know? And I would say it's better to ask, better to be curious than to assume.
Yeah. And this came up in the comments, and I've heard this so many times through the years. So maybe you could speak to this too, where it's like, how can you be a they? You're one person. How can you be multiple people? But I love it because it actually happened multiple times in the comments. I'm going to read an example where someone did this. Someone phrased their question. My question is, how does someone arrive at the conclusion that they are non-binary? And there's the mismatch right there. It's like, I'm sure this person, when he wrote that, didn't think anything of it. Like, how does someone know that they are binary? But someone, singular, they, plural, but they're using they to encompass like the ambiguity or the bothness of he or she. Because like I remember growing up as an English student of like being taught, I don't know if they teach this anymore, but it's like if you have a someone that's a singular pronoun, like you match it with he or she, you don't say they, you would say he or she. But I feel like it's become so common that like no one's gonna say extra couple words to say he or she. They'll just say they. Like if you said, I have a friend who lives in Wyoming, you might say, oh, what's their name? You wouldn't say, what's his or her name? You would say, what's their name? Because you don't know if you don't know what the gender of the friend is. So to me, like when I think about it that way, I don't really think much about it anymore. But I also remember being in a different place like some years ago where that was also confusing to me when I was learning alongside so many other millions of people, like, oh, they can mean, it doesn't mean multiple people are living inside of you, right? It's just like an ambiguous way to just say a name that you prefer. Does that basically sum it up, or is there anything more that you want to add to the they conversation?
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I would have said. I'm a huge linguistic nerd too. I love language and like kind of the science behind language too. And one of the things that makes language interesting is the fact that it's constantly evolving. Like we have words in our vocabulary now, phrases, because of the internet, that would not have existed 30, 40, 50 years ago, much less like 100 years ago. So I think that's one of those things that has shifted, where there's been more of a move to use neutral terms that typically would be associated with like a group that now are being used for a singular person. For example, the like we've got a gender neutral term that's perfect in the South, y'all, and that's not technically a word, but it has become so commonly used that
y'all.
It's being spread across like the US, because it's such a great like gender neutral term to associate with a group of people. And I mean, sometimes I'll unintentionally just call an individual person y'all, just out and about, because it's just what I'm used to doing. Yeah. So I think that piece of like language is constantly evolving, and being able to understand that and recognize that, again, especially with the rise of the internet and how global everything is becoming, we're also seeing a lot of terms and phrases like from other parts of the world that are being co-opted. Our language, like the English language, is a co-opted language. That's a mix of a lot of different terms and phrases from around the world, words as well. You've got other languages around the world that also, I would say, have like gendered terms for everything, like in French or a lot of the romantic languages. And then you've got languages in other parts of the world, like the Asiatic languages. Most of them have no gendered terms because it's meant to be more pictorial and conjure up an image in your mind. And I think that's also something that's unique about the US is we've got kind of this, again, blending of, we've got some very gendered terms that are coming from the Romance languages, and we've got some terms coming from other language bases that are less gendered or maybe not gendered at all, which gives us a lot of flex of how we can and do say different things.
Erin, why don't we go to some Yasser feedback? We got some Yassers asking some questions. So what is we'll kind of bounce back and forth here between the men and the women asking questions. But yeah, curious to hear any of the questions that your community asked.
Sure. Someone said, I understand how someone could identify as trans / having gender dysphoria, but what confuses me is when someone identifies as trans, meaning they've either gone through a social transitioning or HRT or surgeries, and they also identify as non-binary. So when someone identifies as trans and also non-binary, could you please provide clarification on this?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit less of my experience. I'm not going to try and speak like too firmly to it. But I do think it touches on some of the elements of the trans experience that I think really push at the boundaries of what the gender binary means and what it looks like expression wise. There are several people I know who have transitioned and are wanting to take certain steps that help alleviate like experiences with their dysphoria, but still feel like they fall more kind of in that middle category. Like if we're, again, that's on a spectrum and someone is kind of shifting away from their biological gender or their biological sex, they might be wanting to move more towards like the other side, but not necessarily go all the way either. There might be other pieces where it's like, I still feel masculine some days, especially for people who are gender fluid or agender. And it's really dependent on like kind of the moment or the experience that they're having that particular day. And it's a little bit harder to define. So I would say it's leaning away from like the rigid defined structures that the binary sometimes gets into and wanting to instead be as undefined as possible, I think is where that conversation is getting into. Again, it's a little bit less of my experience, so I'm not going to try and speak too firmly to that. But that's a little bit of what I've observed and heard from certain people.
Sounds like the common theme is just ask people case by case. Like, hey, I've noticed that you use these two terms.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like getting curious and then obviously, respecting people if they don't want to talk about certain things. But I love if something isn't clear to ask about it. And I wanted to like bring up intersex as well, because I heard about intersex for the first time. Gosh, it might have been at a posture shift conference. I forget. Like I went to my first posture shift conference in 2017. So it was either then or it was around then. I'm not sure when exactly I first heard of this term, because I was like, oh, that's a thing, that people are born with multiple sets of genitalia or ambiguous genitalia where it's not clear like definitively this is a boy, this is a girl, if it's not as clear. Like there's different, I was like researching it a little bit. I don't know if Jesse or Erin for that matter, if y'all have dug deeper into this than I have, but I was like, it's like depends on how you define what intersex is. Like there's like a broad definition of intersex that could be at like around 1% of the population, which is significant, like for 1% to be that inclusive of intersex. It could also, if you narrow the definition, it could be like more like 1 in 5,000 births, something straying from the normal happens with the baby being born. But like, I can only imagine like that just adds another layer of complexity, regardless of what you're feeling internally, to then see, I mean, Jesse, you were sharing a little bit about your own body, like the physical, the external, to then get even more confusing with the internal. So I just want to like, I don't know if people weren't aware. There was a time where I was not aware that intersex births were as common. I mean, they're still rare, but more common than I ever thought that they were. So I think it's important for people to be aware of that, just physiologically, that is something that occurs more often than we think.
Kind of on the same lines, is androgynous synonymous with non-binary, or is it an outdated term? And then they said similar to hermaphrodite and intersex. I guess there's a couple questions there. Is intersex an outdated term?
Not to my knowledge. I wouldn't say it's outdated, because it's also a pretty objective medical term.
Yeah.
And for people who are intersex, like that's the way that explains like part of their experience. It may still have like more specific like parts of like how they particularly experience being intersex, because it also has a genetic component that can't be changed.
And that is the I, if people were curious, in LGBTQ, you might see LGBTQIA. That's kind of a new extended acronym as well. So that's, the I that's in there.
Mm-hmm. I don't think or intersex is outdated. Although there might be some broader conversations trying to happen to make it more of like a humanizing personal term rather than just kind of like a sterile medical term, because that's one of the downsides with anything in the medical sphere or the psychological sphere too, is because those terms need to be very accurate, precise for medical personnel and a lot of other things connected to that, it can become very sterile and less personal. For the androgynous side, I would say that's usually more of a term that's associated with like the actual presentation, like the style that someone's trying to present. People who are wanting to present more androgynous tend to be in the non-binary sphere. And so they're wanting to kind of present as something that's like not quite fully male, but not quite fully female, somewhere in the middle. Gender bending is another term that kind of fits into that, where they're wanting to be a little bit confusing almost, whether intentionally or not, to the masses, and have people question like, are you supposed to be a boy? Are you supposed to be a girl? And then, is that really the point? Like, what about that matters to you in this moment? Like, is that going to change how you treat me as a person? I think is more of where that like kind of social commentary piece is getting into it with that particular term.
Well, let's go to this conversation about how God made us male and female, because I think, I hear this argument all the time, and I want to be clear, like I'm evolving as a human, and what do I believe? And I'm still learning. Even in this conversation, I'm learning so much. And so I appreciate it. Like my goal with this conversation and any conversation in YOB or YOS or YOF for that matter is like, where can we be curious and learn more? And like, maybe we think we understand something fully, but maybe we don't. Maybe someone out there didn't know intersex people existed until literally 45 seconds ago. And now they know that, because what do you do with that when we look at scripture and it says God made them male and female, but then someone is born with genitalia that goes with both, with male and female? Like what do we do with that person? Because oftentimes doctors will decide, okay, there's more of this than that, and so we'll surgically remove that, but then potentially that creates a disconnect with their sense of gender as they get older, and that happens. And so what do we do with that? Like, it would be convenient. It would be so convenient if God made everyone male and female and everyone fit into the box and it was easy. And I think, again, this is a snapshot of what so many guys in YOB and probably the women in YOS too have experienced, where it's like we don't fit neatly into the box of masculinity or femininity. So for me, it's not a big leap to say, okay, then this is another way that people don't fit neatly into boxes. And I hope that people in our community have that sense of empathy of like wanting to learn more. Like, I don't know, is there anything else you would add or expound upon that, Jesse, this whole concept of God made them male and female? And what do we do with that?
Oh boy, could I ever? Yeah, that's actually going to be a main point in my breakout session. So
I don't want you to spoil it.
I'm not going to spoil the whole thing, but one piece I'll share that I'm actually not going to get into for my breakout is a theological perspective kind of in this conversation. Is this element where, like, through the creation account, you've got God kind of laying out a binary. So you got male and female, you've got day and night, you've got the land and sea, sky and earth, all this stuff. But when you start to break that down, you've got a lot of these kind of middle sections that fall into those categories. Like, you've got dawn and dusk and midday, and you've got the shoreline, which is kind of that starting to blend the land and the sea. You've got mountains that kind of blend into the sky. You've also got creatures that can be in multiple spaces on like waterfowl. You've got amphibians. You've got various sea creatures that may start on land that wind up primarily in the water. So there's a perspective there that wonders if that should also extend to humanity as well, where you've got kind of these in-between elements. I'm not here to push a particular theological perspective, and there's still some things where I'm not fully sure where I land personally. So I'm also not going to share my particular perspective there because I'm not fully certain of myself either. But that's a perspective there, just to provide a different viewpoint. Another thing that I'll quickly mention with that specific passage, which I think is one of, if not the main, like, clobber passage essentially for trans people, is God created them male and female. But if you look at that section, that particular verse, that is the last line of a 3-line statement where it says that God created them in his image. And that statement of humanity being made in God's image is made twice. And then male and female, he created them. And in scripture, the authors in many of the books will make repetitive statements as a way to emphasize a point. And so I'm not saying that gender is not important, because I think it's pretty important to humanity, to how we express ourselves, to how we interact with one another. But in that passage, the thing that's being emphasized is the fact that we are made in God's image. And I think that's the thing that should be focused on first before the gender piece.
That's good. That's good stuff. And the fact that God, I don't know that a lot of Christians know what to do with the fact that God, if we're made in the image of God, male and female, and created them, like, that God is feminine and masculine. What do we do with that, Erin?
Ignore it. People just ignore it.
A feminine God? What do we do with that?
Yeah. Come to my breakout and hear more about that.
Yeah, another plug for Jesse's breakout.
I can't wait. I can't wait to go to Jesse's breakout.
Did we say what time it is? 1:30 on Thursday. Be there or be square.
I like the transition point too. When you're talking about that, Jesse, that jives. That makes a lot of sense to me. That, yeah, like you see it everywhere. There's like a general rule that's set in nature, like of binaries, but then there's always exceptions. There's always things that don't fit as neatly into boxes, and so that's, again, the cool part about this conversation is that if you've ever felt like you didn't fit into a box in any sort of area in your life, like hopefully you can at least start to understand what we're talking about here with gender minorities, even if that doesn't directly, of course, interact with your experience. All right, so a big topic with trans people, with gender minorities, is the topic of transitioning, either surgically, medically, with hormones, with clothing, or however they present themselves. Like there's all these different levels of transitioning, socially versus physically. I know it's come up in our community, and people were very bold to ask these questions, and so I want to hear what your thoughts are, and whether you have a solid theology around this or not, because I mean, I have some of my thoughts that I'll add later, but yeah, what are your thoughts just on the morality of someone not only experiencing dysphoria, but then like taking that to the point of transitioning in some defined specific way? Like, is that something they should be allowed to do? Is it morally not permissible? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to be speaking for any and all, like,
I know you're not. I want to make it clear you're not the person.
I
to
am not
decide.
the end all be all by any means. Yeah, and I think even within church spaces and church traditions, there's a variety of views and theological perspectives, and a ton of work that has been done over quite a chunk of time in church history that has talked about some of these topics. I think for me, my perspective is also going to be influenced by my connection to counseling spheres and the training that I've done there. And so my top priority for both mental health and also in faith spaces is a person needs to be functional in some capacity in order to connect with Jesus. And I think that even in and of itself could be a little controversial, because if we, again, believe that everyone has the capacity to bear God's image, that extends to people who may not like physically have their full mental capacities about them. And so there's a little bit of faith there that you have to trust and believe, if they have the opportunity to encounter Jesus in some way, that they're going to come to faith, whatever that looks like, because they have a soul. And I think that's most important, first and foremost, is knowing that all of us are image bearers and have souls. For transition steps, personally, I've struggled with some of the morality pieces, mainly in the line of, I think our bodies are important. And at the same time, I have done things myself where I've changed my body in certain ways. I've got my ears pierced. I have a tattoo right there.
I was going to say, like, piercings and tattoos and plastic surgery and Botox, like, what do we do with all that stuff too? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you've also got, so those are things that people do sometimes by choice, sometimes not. Like you certainly have situations, like medical reasons for getting that. Like when my mom got, had cancer, and she had to have a double mastectomy, and that's something that has permanently changed her body, that she did not fully have a say in. She could have refused that, but she chose to go that route, as do many, because it prolongs your livelihood. So I think there's a lot of areas in the church where people will make exceptions for one thing, but not for the other. I think there's also the element that's a reality that I personally have experienced, where biological women are have a lot more leeway to explore different gender presentations. For instance, the tomboy, where someone who is biologically female can and they do dress in ways that are very contrary to the female binary and maybe look more masculine. And people tend not have a problem with that. But the same is not afforded to biological males that want to present more effeminately. Even if they're not wanting to transition, even if they are perfectly comfortable in their masculinity, there is very little grace in that sector. And so that's something that I would pose to many in the church. Like, if you're not comfortable with people medically transitioning, what are you comfortable with? Because people need to be able to figure out how they're going to make their lives work in spaces like the church, like their workplace, like their home lives. And if you're going to make a stance in a statement that says medical transitioning is not okay, then is doing like changing clothing, wearing makeup, or getting your hair cut a certain way, or other things that may be more put your presentation into a different gender sphere. Like, is that going to be okay? Because if it's not, what is, and how are you going to walk with people in that space? I also always want to challenge people in that of, like, yes, you may believe that medical transitioning is morally wrong for one reason or another, but then you get into the question of, okay, so if someone who's not a Christian goes and medically transitions, and then they encounter Jesus and start following Jesus, how do they engage with the church? What spaces are they allowed to enter in if they've already transitioned and have been living life as a trans male or a trans female? How is the church going to respond then? And those are the things where, like, I think the morality question is one thing, but it's another thing when you start actually encountering the realities that people are facing every day, and the realities that the church is going to have to face one day, of what are we going to do when these people come to the church or are in our churches now. And that, I think that's the part where it starts getting messy, and you have to start asking different types of questions that are beyond just the base morality. I think that's also where theology gets kind of messy, because you can have a theological stance and have theological beliefs, but real life does not often line up with our theological beliefs and our theological systems that we hold to as Christians. And that's where, again, where faith comes in, where we have to say, you know what, I hold to this, and life is not lining up the way that I believe things should be, ought to be, whatever the case is. And I'm going to have faith that God is still working in these circumstances, and that He's going to redeem all things, make all things right, regardless of whether it's by my work, regardless of whether people are doing the right thing or not. I think also, if there's like that question around like morality and like sinfulness, that's part of the work of the cross, the redemption that comes through following Jesus and repentance and seeking His face. And that's not dependent on whether we've taken certain medical steps or not. That does not prevent us from coming to know Jesus. And I feel like I just went on a big rant, but that's my beliefs.
Rant, sermon, it's good stuff. I just have to like be like, man, this is not my experience. And so I just have to learn where people are at. Jesse, I feel like this is such a rich conversation, and you joked with me beforehand that there's not enough time, or we cannot possibly do this in an hour. So I think it would be awesome if we did a part 2. There's no expectation. I know you're about to hop, skip, and jump to the Big Apple, and you're going to probably be very busy up there. But it would be really great to have you back, because we have so much more feedback we didn't get to. Another prompt that I asked. Should I just go ahead and tease the people what the second prompt was?
Do it.
Okay. I see nodding. I see encouragement. I see affirmation on my screen. Okay. Because this was the second prompt I asked, which is so juicy, right? It was, what do you feel or think specifically about gender minorities joining your other family? What causes you uncertainty, concern, fear, and any other uncomfortable emotions or thoughts? And they didn't hold back. They were very open and honest about their insecurities, their fears, their stances, their thoughts and feelings on this. And I just feel like, to do it justice, we should not try to do that in 4 minutes. Right? I don't think that would
not silence the people.
Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of good stuff there. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know how y'all felt reading some of it. I was like, okay, this is where not everyone is, but this is where the 5, 10, 15 people who submitted feedback, where they are. And I appreciate their honesty. Like, again, no dumb questions, no dumb feelings. Like, tell us what you're feeling, and like, let's talk about it and let's sort through it. Cause I think this is such a necessary part of where we're at, between having your other brothers and your other sisters. Like, is there room? I mean, that's the lingering question. Is there room for gender minorities who don't feel like a brother or don't feel like a sister, who prefer maybe a more general term, like a sibling? Like, is there space? Is there room in the nest? And I'm convinced there is. And how to work that out and how to do that, I'll certainly be picking Jesse's brain, and I'm sure we'll have lots of conversations. You're on the board, so we'll talk about it. But I just feel like there's a lot of rich content there for a follow-up episode, if you're up for it.
I'm absolutely up for it. I love having these conversations and having these conversations with you guys. Or y'all, I should say.
All of y'all.
There you go. All y'all.
All y'all. Yes. And also, like, I would also say, like, one of the things, again, I love about, like, this community and spaces like Revoice as well, and learn about Speak Kaleidoscope, is being in spaces where, like, we don't all come from the same, like, faith traditions, faith backgrounds. We don't all have the same theological convictions on every single point. And that's part of how we, again, get to learn from each other. And part of that learning means, like, having to ask hard questions and hear hard questions sometimes, for me, and for, I know, you too as well. And that's something I look forward to anytime I'm, like, engaging in conversation with your other family, and with Revoice, and with people in life.
Well, thanks, Jesse, for your perspective, your participation, and I'm excited for all that's to come, both for your life and your new season, and then for our continuing life and season as a community and as a ministry. So thanks to everyone who sent in feedback. We'll get to it. This is how I've just had to learn. This is just how it is. Like, y'all just over deliver on the feedback, and then we just have to sift through it all, and it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a while to get through it, but it's good stuff. So I appreciate so many engaged community members. That is a good problem to have. I'll take that any day, as opposed to crickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We need the lurkers to say things.
Yes, lurkers come out. And y'all, I will see you in person, in the flesh, very soon. So very soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing y'all at Revoice.
Can't wait to see you guys too.
I know. We'll all be together. It'll be good.
A glimpse of heaven.
It really is, though. All of our members, come see us.
All y'all.
All y'all come round us. You hear? We're going to talk. We're going to hang out. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be a good time. So drop us a comment. So it's kind of confusing, because this podcast is not a YOB podcast, and it's not a YOS podcast. This gets posted on our YOF website, which there's not a lot of stuff on there. It kind of tells you, if you've ever been to yourotherfamily.org, it kind of tells you a little bit about our organization, There's like a leadership page where Jesse appears, and like there's very limited material. But then there's a podcast page where we have my YOF updates, and then now this is our third YOFcast. So if you want to comment on this episode, you can go over there, yourotherfamily.org, and find the episode 3 post about gender minorities, or you can go to YouTube. You can comment on YouTube. We'll have clips of these things floating around on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all the things. So we got so many places where you can drop some thoughts, in addition to rating and reviewing us, of course. So thanks to y'all for the engagement. Thanks for the honesty, and keep it coming. Keep the good questions. There are no dumb questions. Keep the good questions coming as we work through all of this together, as we gain greater understanding and empathy for one another. All right. For all my other family out there, this is Tom.
This is Erin.
And this is Jesse.
Reminding all of y'all that you are not alone. Even the sparrow finds a home. Bye, fam. Love you all.
Thanks for listening to Your Other Family podcast, a production of Your Other Family. If you enjoy this or any of the shows on Your Other Family podcast network, consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also follow our family of socials on Facebook and Instagram at Your Other Fam, Your Other Bros, and Your Other Sisters, and on YouTube at Your Other Fam. Finally, if you enjoy our content, consider giving to support our nonprofit ministry. Check out our YOF giving link in the episode description for membership in our YOB and YOS communities. Submit an inquiry at yourotherbrothers.org/membership or yourothersisters.org/membership. There's always room for one more sparrow in our nest. Until we journey next time, we're glad you're with us.
Your Other Family.